Tonight in RCVTV, we're going to be taking a look at the TFV8, nicknamed the Cloud Beast, and for a very good reason. Alright, so let's break down what you get in the box with this Cloud Beast. And before we get started, sorry about the nails. I had my 4-year-old painting them earlier this week. Alright, so what you get in the box with this guy is you get a nice silica gel packet to keep the moisture out of here. You get the tank itself, most obviously. Underneath here, you get a lot of goodies, and they do include quite a bit with this guy. So you do have a authenticity card. You have a Smok Tech manual, which is actually quite nice if you want to read through it. It's written very simply, which makes it very good for something like this tank, which can be a little bit crazy for some people. So what we got in the actual base here is we have a spare coil. This one is going to be the quad coil. The one installed in the tank is going to be an octuple. So there's 8 in this, 4 vertically mounted parallel coils. And in this guy, it's going to be 4 vertically mounted coils as well. So it's 2 on top of each other in parallel. You have a rebuildable deck, if that is your kind of thing. We will talk a little bit about that a little bit later on in the video, which is this guy right here. You get spare glass, which is a nice included. And then you have a bunch of extra seals. You get an extra top fill bit. You get a 510 adapter. You get some extra grub screws. You get 2 nice 25 mil so wide vape bands to protect your tank. You get a little baggie of cotton, which is what for the build deck. You get another packet of silica gel, and then you do have a little Allen key in the corner there. Alright, so tank itself. First thing you're going to notice about this tank, it is very large. It is a 24 millimeter at the base, and it stretches up to be about 25 mil at about the glass. It's got a very, very wide drip tip on it, which is very nice because it'll keep it very cool even at a very high wattage. Even at 200 watts, it is a very cool vape because of this tip. You can use the drip tip adapter in the box if you want to use your standard 510s, but I probably recommend keeping the wattage a little bit lower than what you would use with the big boy tips. It's got some of the biggest airflow I've ever seen on a replaceable coil tank. It's so big you can see right through it, which is absolutely ridiculous, and it is adjustable, so you can close that off and open it up based on what you kind of like. Based on the way this design is on this tank, wide open airflow is kind of the way to go. Alright, so for accessing your coils, you want to grab that whole base section, you twist your glass, that'll open this section up. You open that section up, and out pops your bottom, and then you have your top half of the tank. Now your coil, just like anything else, is going to be lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and I'll give you a close-up look of what this looks like. So you can see there is 4 parallel coils in there mounted vertically, so you do get 8 coils with the coil that comes in it. And like I said, there is that quad coil in the box, and then Smok does also sell a 6 coil for this as well. But what it seems most people seem to prefer either the octuple or the quad. The octuple allowing you to go up to 260 watts, recommended 180, 50 on the low end, but 120 is what they recommend for the low end. The octuples the quads can't go as high, but most people seem to be preferring this or the quads. The 6s seem to be getting not as much love. Now, the one thing about this tank that you need to know before you ever fill it up is if you put all of your juice in this tank and you get about halfway through that juice and you don't like it anymore, This glass piece is just held on by that O-ring. So once this gets juice in it and it's lubed up, it won't stick to the top anymore. It'll actually just fall right off. So when you go to open this tank to either change your coil or to dump your juice or whatever, it will leak like a sieve. So you do need to make sure you have no juice in there, or at least virtually no juice left when you go to change your coils, or you're going to be wasting some juice that you might have had in there. Now, we're gonna prime this guy up, and then I'm gonna show you how to fill it. So for priming this guy, we're gonna be using OMC at 3 milligrams, my all-time favorite flavor. Now, priming this guy is not like any other tank. Although it is, because you're doing the same process, you do have to do it a lot more. So what I've been tending to do is I will do a circle on each individual set of parallel coils in here, and then I will paint each of the 4 strips around the outside. Now, the interesting thing to talk about this coil is because of these very long strips on the outside of it, generally speaking, we found that under 100 watts, people have been able to get about 2.5–3 weeks out of a coil. Over 100 watts, you're still looking at about 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks. So it is a very long-lasting coil. Now, when I am priming this, I keep going around and I keep adding juice to each strip until I can see that the juice is no longer being absorbed into the actual coil itself. That'll guarantee that I've got enough juice in there not to get a dry hit on my first pull, which is never fun. And after I've done that, I've noticed it's no longer absorbing it as much. I go back to the top and I give a circle on each one again, and then one more for good measure. Now, you don't want to absolutely drench this coil. It does hold quite a bit of juice, but if you get too much in there, you'll end up having leaking problems once you go to fill the tank for the very first time. So we're going to thread the top section back on, and then I'll show you how you open this up for filling. So on the top of this, it does have a little arrow with an open. So you actually push that whole top section in the direction it says open. It will slide over, similar to the TFV8. It's a little bit sturdier, so it's less easy to open up in a pocket. And then you got your actual chimney, which goes straight down to your coils. And then you have your fill hole. So we're going to take my bottle of OMC, and we're going to fill this bad boy up. Perfect. Now, for the purpose of today's video, we're going to be using the Fuchai 213, the brother to the Sigeli 213. We're going to be changing it up with a couple of different wattages and a couple of different preheats when we take this up top, which we'll be doing in a couple seconds here. But I did tell you we'll talk about the rebuildable deck for this guy. First we'll do that, and then we'll pop back up top and we'll have a vape on this. So, for the rebuildable deck, it does come pre-installed, which I love when companies do this. It comes pre-installed with massive collecting coils, which is awesome because then you don't have to worry about throwing a build into this. You can go right away and wick it, and you should be good. Now, 2 things. I have seen it once or twice when setting these up in the store. Although these coils are pre-installed for you, I would dry heat them to check if they have any hot spots, because I found 1 or 2 that have. Otherwise, the way this system works is there's a big pipe underneath both coils, and that's where your airflow comes from. So that'll come from below. Now, you have little holes in the side here, and that is where the juice will flow into your wicks. You're actually supposed to pack these side sections full of your cotton, and the juice will flow and pull it up to the coil, and you'll create your vapor. Now, the problem I've been seeing is if you put too little in there, too much juice gets in there and it all falls out the pipes for the airflow and just makes it leak like an absolute sieve. So having too much will actually end up having quite a bit of dry hits. So finding a sweet balance in between too thick, too thin, and too much and too little cotton for this guy is kind of a trick. We will have a video out on this later about trying to get the wicking down right. But for the meantime, when you go to fill your tank with the RBA in there, don't fill it up all the way just in case you need to pop this guy back out. And like I was saying, when you pop your coils out of this device, it does basically break the entire seal of the tank, so it will leak. So make sure you don't put too much in there so you're not wasting too much. All right, so let's go back up top. We'll have a vape on this guy and say our goodbyes. All right, so I've got the TFV8 on the Fuchai 213, and the first hit I'm going to be taking is in that lower range, not the recommended range, the lower range that they say it can handle. So I've got it sitting at 65 watts, but I have it preheating to 76 for 0.7 of a second. So let's give this a try. Amazing flavor, amazing cloud production, even at a lower wattage for what the coils are rated for. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is that it's very cool, very, very cool at this wattage. So we're going to bump this up. I'm going to run it at, say, let's go with 100 watts. So I got it at 100 watts, and let's preheat to 130. For 0.7 a second as well. So 130 for 0.7 of a second, and then 100. So let's give this a try. A little bit more vapor, a tiny bit warmer, but it's definitely still a very, very cool vape. So let's try this up even a little bit higher. So let's say 140, let's say 145, and we'll preheat this to like $1.70. It's $1. So we got 175 for 0.7 of a second, and then it drops down to 145 after that 0.7. Ridiculous amount of vapor, and I am now starting to get a little bit of a warmth from it. I would still consider it a warm vape, not a hot vape. Definitely warm. Wonderful hit, and the flavor is still there, if not better, especially with my favorite flavor, the OMC. Ridiculous. All right, so I know a couple of you out there are like, well, go higher. I'm gonna go higher, so we're gonna pump this up to let's say 175, and we'll preheat to 213 for 0.7 a second. So that's about as high as I've ever vaped at. So 213 for 0.7 of a second, and then bumps back down to 175. And like I was saying, this is the highest I've ever vaped at, not just this tank, any vape. Even at that really high wattage, this is definitely still a cooler vape. It is not hot by any stretch of the imagination. If you closed off the airflow, you probably could get it to be a hotter vape, and if you switched it up for a 510 drip tip, it would definitely be a hot vape. But the flavor and everything is still there. As far as things go, I'm loving this tank. I'm an avocado lover. That's what I have on my setup all of the time. Now, I usually use a Rouleau. When I'm using this tank, the TFV8, I am using it on any other device other than my Rouleau. Now, the reason that is because Smok Tech, all of their 510s, at least on their newer tanks, tend to be a little bit longer, so either 1 or 2 threads longer than what most normal tanks are, and they have a very long protruding pin connection itself. So Wismec has said when they come out about the rouleaus and all that kind of stuff that it actually voids the warranty by putting a TFV8 on a rouleau. Now, if you are sure your warranty is out of date at this point, it's not a big deal. It's not actually going to hurt the device. It just pushes the 510 spring right down to its maximum, so it's just not the best thing for the longevity of your 510 connection. But if you leave it on there all the time and you're not taking the tank on and off and on and off, shouldn't be that big of a problem. But all in all, wonderful little tank. The only question I'm going to leave you guys with, is it too much tank for you? It possibly is, but as far as getting the most you're ever going to get out of a tank with pre-built coils, it's pretty damn good. So I'm going to take one more toot. That's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always,
subscribe to the channel, like the videos.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
like us on Facebook, and until next time,
Make smart choices.